want to have a chat with you about momentum. Now, my fundamental belief is momentum is your best friend in business, your absolute best friend. So if momentum is your best friend, what's a good example of that? Well, I love the aircraft metaphor. So an aircraft in terms of taking off. Now, I'm going to draw this up for you because I think it's a great tool for you to have. And many, many times I'm working with a new team early, I draw up this particular metaphor to help them with this. So we'll just put this here. This is the runway. Here's the aircraft. It's either in on the runway, it's in takeoff, climb, and up to cruise. Interestingly enough, what I then ask is I then ask, so where are you in your real estate career? Are you still on the tarmac loading fuel and loading passengers? Interesting. Are you waiting for pushback? Are you waiting for air traffic control to clear you for takeoff? Are you on the runway? Are you now full thrust kind of thing on the runway? Are the front wheels off? Are all wheels off? Are the wheels tucked up? Are you somewhere in climb, or are you up in cruise? Where I say momentum is a business's best friend, it's up here that it's our best friend. So, I had this conversation with a leader, and it was, is it easier to sell one property per month, or is it easier to sell 4 properties a month? It's much easier to sell 4 properties a month because you're actually in market momentum. When you're selling one, you're sort of in this sort of almost the turbulence part. So we know if an aircraft is climbing, it is not a time to back off. In fact, what I tell relatively new agents to do is during this time frame, or when you need to reset and get to a new level, you've got to put EE in. And EE stands for explosive energy. You're going to have explosive energy in here to get up to this particular level. The interesting thing is once an aircraft is at cruise, it doesn't take that much energy to keep the aircraft going. In fact, the big commercial aircraft, if their engines cut out when they're in cruise, not a good thing, by the way, but if they do, they can glide for about 200 kilometres. So that's pretty significant in terms of the distance that they can travel because they've already got that momentum that is built in. The problem is if engines conk out in this time frame, the bird falls out of the sky. It's not a good look. And what we want to do is help our team not be in this turbulence mode, because this is when they particularly are grumpy bums. When they're in momentum, and by the way, the skill set needs to change and the focus needs to change in terms of what are you putting into your day, your week, your month under this set of market conditions versus those market conditions. Because I've seen a lot of great real estate professionals, they're waiting for the market to change so they don't need to. No. The market is always going to be on the move. So how do we have a strategy that reflects the market conditions that are needed right now? And if it changes next month or next week, we change next week. So we keep that dynamic nature in terms of strategy. But this concept of one is knowing that momentum is our business's best friend, and how do we go about creating it? A great question you could ask in your one-on-one sessions with team members is what will create a greater level of momentum for you? So all of a sudden we start to think about momentum. What level of energy do you need to put in to get up to a higher level, to get up to that particular momentum? And then, of course, I ask team members, where do you think you are? I'm on the runway. Front wheels are off. Okay, I'm in climb. Okay, great. I'm in momentum, but I'd love to be at a higher altitude. Okay, what do you need to do to get to that altitude? Back to start, stop, continue. So what do you need to start doing, stop doing, continue doing at the place that you're at to get to the next stage of your journey? And what's neat about that is rather than having a plan for the team, which we will do, we start having individuals have a plan for where they're at as to the next stage of the journey that they're on in terms of building this wonderful thing called momentum. In a live workshop, guys, when I'm physically there, I actually have the guys actually say the word momentum. It's got so much movement about it, momentum, like how do you build that? And by the way, if you're not using that word in your dialogue and conversation with the team, you might want to start bringing it into play. Momentum is a business's best friend. Momentum is an agent's best friend. Momentum is a property manager's best friend. Momentum is a marketing manager's best friend. Momentum is your best friend. So I like to take this metaphor one step further. And here is the cockpit of an A380. Just one or two buttons, and please don't put me in there and expect me to fly this particular bird. Why? Because there are so many twists and turns and dials there around it. What's interesting, though, there's two sets of indicators that this aircraft has and that your business needs. So the first kind are your lead indicators, and the second kind are your historical indicators. Now, if you sit down with the typical accountant, okay, your typical accountant is going to give you the historical indicators. You know, that's that time where you sit down with your accountant and say, you've actually made a lot of money. You got, this tax bill to pay. So, well, I haven't got it. Where's it gone kind of thing. They're historical indicators. Useful in a business to have, do a history lesson. But if we look at momentum indicators is what's coming up. What does the future look like? So what are some indicators? By the way, I believe it's between 3 and 5 for your business that you want to have that give you an indication that you are on the right track. Let me give you an example of this. A particular agency in the Melbourne marketplace, they know when they have 55 auctions ahead of them, they are in market momentum. That's the number they look at. So they don't need to worry about almost anything else. Do we have the 55 in front of us? Because if we have the 55, we're doing great. Another momentum indicator would be how many appraisals per agent are we doing per week? That's a momentum indicator. A momentum indicator in property management, for example, is the number of new managements coming in. And in terms of losses, we've eliminated preventable losses. We've now only got unpreventable losses. Owners move back in, they've sold the property, how dare they? And they've sold it to a not an investor, to an owner-occupier. That's going to go out of the portfolio. So you want to have a situation where you've got some of these lead indicators that that if you were on the beach in Hawaii and you actually got a bang on your phone, a quick summary. So it's got to fit onto a phone screen, and the phone screen said, here are the indicators. Ba-ding, ba-ding, ba-ding. Maximum 5 that you look at and you go like, okay, cool. I know based on these 5, the business is in momentum. So this is less about, what happened last year and what we wrote last year. This is more about what's coming, where are we at, what's the future look like. So I would really invite you to identify for your business, what does that look like? Can you bring this back down to an individual? Absolutely. So what are your momentum indicators? What are your lead indicators that mean that you're in a healthy momentum? There's one particular agent in the Sydney marketplace that for him, when he has 12 exclusive listings that he is either launching or in selling, he knows he is in momentum. So that's a real key indicator. We can talk a little bit about the pipeline management piece. Why? Because a lot of the time, and I'm stepping back in time, many of you know I did a lot of one-on-one agent coaching early on in my real estate development sort of models. And typically in an agent coaching session, an agent want to tell me what they've listed and what they have sold. Now, what's interesting is if they've listed it, I'm assuming they've listed it in a way to get it sold. So they've got the processes in place to get it sold. That's incredibly important. If they've sold it, they're actually waiting for settlement for the money to turn up for them to actually, show me the money. So they are useful. For me, the number one indicator that I'm interested in from an agent point of view is what's sitting in your pipeline. So how many pipeline A's do you have? How many pipeline B's do you have? And if you've got a healthy pipeline, we know that not only this month is going to be great, but we know what's going to happen next month and the month after. Unfortunately, most agents tend not to think next month and the month after. They think sort of like very in the now performance. So this is one of the ways that we can help build a performance culture by helping them step back and say, hey, let's have a look at these lead indicators for you. One of them has to be how many appraisals are you doing per week, but also how many are sitting in pipeline in terms that are going to list in the next 30 days, in the next 2 to 3 months. So you've got this healthy capability coming into play.